Hello and welcome to our weekly Integral Love Relationship Web Jam. My name is Martin Utschig and I'm the author of Integral Relationships, a Manual for Men, and my new book, Sex, Purpose, Love, Couples in Integral Relationships Creating a Better World. And the purpose of our web jams that are weekly right now is to further the Integral Love Relationship vision. And today I'm excited to be joined by my friend, psychologist, Dr. Susan Campbell. And she's still working on getting online, but we just talked on the phone, so hang with us. And if you join us live, we invite you to participate by writing your comments at the bottom right of your screen. And if you are single and looking for a partner, you may also share your integralsingles.com screen name or your Facebook profile name. We also encourage you to join our conversation live by clicking on the hand symbol at the top right of your screen. And of course, we're talking about communication today, so maybe we have somebody to join us. Once I accept your request, the small plugin will be downloaded and a test of your camera and microphone will run before you can come online. Hello, Susan. At least we can see her. And she's smiling, so she can hear me. So if you come online, this works best in Google Chrome. And please note that the web jam is recorded and you give your permission to be included in the replay. Have you turned on your microphone, Susan? Not yet. So we see you, but we don't hear you. There's a little microphone symbol up there.
I'm glad. Now do you hear me?
Now we hear you loud and clear.
Very good. Success.
Success. We love it. So Dr. Susan has worked as a professional speaker and dating and relationship coach for how many years?
50.
Wow. She's the author of 7 books. Is this still current?
11 now.
11. Oh, I pulled off your old profile. So anyway, it includes your groundbreaking book, The Couple's Journey. I actually really like that, which introduced the idea into the mainstream of using intimate relationship as a spiritual practice. And your work has been featured in many popular magazines, and you have appeared on many TV talk shows, including CNN Newsnight, that's probably not even on any longer, Good Morning America, and People Are Talking. So I'm saving this. And your book that I had, you know, the dating book that we want to, or the communication book we want to talk about, you know, that burned in my fire, which house fire, which was actually 8 months ago today. And I will grab that a little later. I have these card games that you designed, and they're really wonderful, and I use them in a lot of workshops in my training and even in my book. So I'm excited that we talk about this again today after you joined us a few years ago in our Singles to Couples group in Santa Rosa. So welcome.
Thank you.
So you have 7 secrets, right? Communication secrets or strategies that create deeper intimacy and make love relationship work. So I'm sure we're all on the edge of our seat to learn about those 7 and to talk about them. Is that a good point to start?
Sure. There are actually 7 sentence stems that bring more aliveness to the moment that you're interacting with somebody.
Okay.
Instead of just talking about things that you've talked about a million times before, like rehearsed stories, these conversations bring you into what we used to call I, thou, here, now. And that's where most of the excitement and aliveness is in a conversation. So I can let you know what those 7 sentence stems are and explain them a little bit if you want to start with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. The one that I think is most foundational is the sentence stem, hearing you say that I feel. So if someone gives you a compliment, let's say, they say, oh, I love that dress. And you go into an automatic pattern like, oh, this old thing, I got it at the flea market, or you know, you go on about some kind of thing that isn't really here now.
Yes.
First, if you were to have in your repertoire the phrase, hearing you say that I feel, it would cause you to pause after you hear that compliment and actually let it in and feel yourself receiving it and feel your response. So the response could be, hearing you say that, I feel a little shy that you're looking at me. I thought this dress didn't cover up my belly very well, or you know, whatever. Or hearing you say that, I look pretty, I feel pretty. Thank you. That warms my heart. You know, you're much more there. So that's the first phrase.
And can I interject right there? When I started to do therapy at one point, you know, and the therapist asked me, you know, how did you feel about a certain situation? I went up in my head and I was thinking, how do I feel about that? And there was just no feeling, even though I was very disturbed in this moment. And I mean, that showed me, you know, how dissociated I was from my feelings, because I didn't grow up in a family where feelings were authentically expressed. And he let me off the hook then and said, well, feeling nothing is a feeling too, right? And he said, you may feel empty or dissociated or something. And later when I wrote my book, I put this list of, and you probably have that too, from nonviolent communication, about all these feeling words. Apparently the English language has 2,000 feeling words, but I still see that so often that people are just do this, you know, I feel like running out of the room, or I feel like not talking, or so how do you, I mean, that requires that somebody is authentically in the moment and be able to express an authentic feeling other than I feel good or bad.
Well, it's this whole thing that I'm teaching is relationship as a practice, as an awareness practice. So you might not be perfect at doing this in the beginning, but you're taking on these sentence stems to help you pause long enough to recognize, gee, well, I don't know what the feeling word is, but I know I'm kind of uncomfortable.
Okay.
You know, or I know
which is already a feeling word, right?
Yeah, or I'm tense. You know, those are sensations. Or I'm not breathing. You know, it pauses you long enough to get a little bit of a clue of where you're at. So that's the idea here.
Yeah,
it's not a contest. You know,
who has the bigger feeling repertoire and
right.
Yes, and then what is the other person saying then once they heard? You know, I feel a little uncomfortable, or I feel flattered, or I feel.
Well,
whatever.
that, you know, nobody knows what they're going to say.
Yeah. Do they respond with a feeling when I hear you say that I feel?
However, with couples, when they're like into a little bit of conflict, or maybe trying to clear the air about an argument they had, you might say, you know, when you're trying to clear the air. Now, when I heard you tell me to shut up, I felt hurt.
Yeah.
You know, start clearing the air. And then what I often coach couples in my consulting room to do is, so I say, I felt hurt. And then the partner says, hearing you say that, I feel soft toward you. Yeah. And then the other person says, well, hearing you say that, I feel relief. And if you go back and forth a little bit, both people just staying in the present moment, that's a wonderful practice for keeping out of the mind stories about what that meant.
Yeah.
You know, like that means that you don't like me, or that means you're about to reject me, or something like that. Because people go off into their future fears very, very easily. So this keeps you from doing that.
Yeah. So,
and in dating, it's a very good tool in dating, because so many people are trying so hard to make a good impression, and a lot of times I'll do a modification of this tool, hearing you say that I feel. I'll say, hearing you, like somebody might start talking about something and they're not, this has happened to me when I've been in the dating game here. A man will be saying a lot of things about himself and I won't be able to find a way into the conversation. Maybe I really like the guy and I'd like to comment on what he's saying. So he's talking and talking, and then I have to maybe interrupt and say, you know, as I'm listening to you talking, I'm feeling tense, and I want you to know I really like you, but I'm having a hard time finding a way into the conversation because of how many times you keep talking. So I really want to get into this conversation too, you know, and you just kind of stay present with what's going on. So that's what this device does. It's a communication device. It doesn't mean you're always supposed to say the words, hearing you say that I feel. It means in your inner awareness, you check in with yourself. So hearing you say that I feel is like an inner prompt to feel before you blurt out your automatic stuff.
So everybody who's watching that maybe can even pause in this moment and say to themselves how they feel right now as they hear us speak. Because I feel a sense of curiosity and excitement to practice this more often. And so
you do. So I like your invitation to our listeners. You have a feeling, and then there's a modification on this too. Hearing you say that my self-talk is. So then sometimes you do notice beyond a feeling, you notice a story. But when you notice the story, like I hear you talking one sentence after another without too many breaths, and my story is that you're a little nervous and hey, I want you to know I like you. I've actually had to do that. And because I'm present with myself, I'm more confident and relaxed. I'm not rehearsing, you know, for the future or trying to get him to like me. I'm just in my present feelings. The other person tends to feel safer. And I tend to be friendlier, you know, because I'm not trying to get any specific thing. I'm not even trying to get that he listens to me. It's not about that. It's just clearing what's inside of me so I can be more present. And when I'm more present, I'm more relaxed and friendly.
So my self-talk right now is that just this morning somebody sent me an email and said, when you started to share your feelings, that allowed me to open up. And so that was really very, very nice to read. So and I just came from a trade show and we talked a lot about that we need to have more emotional marketing, not just about the features of our product, but how our customers felt, you know, the rewards they got by buying our product. So I'm a little bit on this feeling journey right now. So, and it was amazing how well that went over with some people who said, you know, how can I sell your product? What are the features? And I talked, you know, that the customers feel really more safe when they use our products because they're more reliable. So this is this whole, we can practice this basically all the time, right? Like almost in every situation.
All communication, you can practice this.
And often we say we need more feminine in the business world, even in management and things like that. So, okay.
Will I tell you the next sentence stem?
I'm ready.
You want to go through those?
I thought that's already enough. You know, it's like,
I know.
We have 6 more to come.
That is enough, actually. And all the other ones kind of build on what is my present feeling and my need and my want. So the next sentence stem just is for those people who have difficulty sometimes checking in with what is the intent or the want behind your communication. So it is, I want. In fact, I have a little card here. I can just hold up for people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can they see that in the correct
Yeah.
way?
Maybe just hold it for a moment so people
Yeah.
can take it in. Well,
This is
that's
7
great.
So why don't I just go through them list form? Because we
Yes.
might not get to all of them here.
Uh-huh.
So the second one is I want, and after the blank, you
Yes.
say, like I want a hug, or I want to feel connected to you. Because sometimes
Yes.
you want something specific, and sometimes you just want a general feeling. Then the next one is, what does it say here? I have some feelings to clear. So when you have unfinished business from a prior, let's say, tense or angry exchange, and you haven't cleared the air, sometimes you have to actually make an appointment. You don't just burst into somebody's room and say, I have some feelings to clear. When you walked out while I was talking, I felt angry. You have to do that by setting a context. So I have some feelings to clear is your opening sentence to set a context for a clearing conversation where you go back and say, when this happened, this is what was going on inside of me. And sometimes when you have to clear something, you say, well, I was triggered and I yelled at you and called you stupid, but that's not what I really felt. I apologize for that. I'm really sorry I said that. If I had it to do over, I would have told you that I was triggered. It was my fear of being rejected coming up, and you didn't deserve that, so that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to get this to the right angle here. So that's a clearing the air is a really important thing to be able to do. And then the next one is I'm getting triggered, just being able to know, and we should spend a little more time on this one, Martin. So I'll come back to this one. That's the cause of most miscommunication is people being triggered, their fears of rejection, abandonment, being ignored, being judged. Those things are motivating people even when they don't realize it. So we'll come back to the I'm being triggered one. The next one's, really sweet one. I appreciate you for. And it's really important. And sometimes people need a prompt to remind ourselves to offer liberal appreciations about really specific things. Like, I appreciate you for how you're looking at me right now. Or I appreciate you for the fact that you're leaning forward as we're talking. Or I appreciate you for the way you ask questions, Martin, like that kind of thing. So having verbal fluency with appreciations, you can't go wrong with that one. But try to be specific about them, because that takes a little more energy when you're specific. I'm trying to get this.
Be authentic.
It's when
not just flattering, but really appreciating, or not manipulating, right?
Well, something that actually did happen, because that takes a little more of work on your part. If you just say, I appreciate how sweet you are. Well, that's good. That's good. But what about, I appreciate you for bringing me those raspberries and for fluffing up my pillow and whatever specific things, because then you're more in the memory of having received that, and you're actually more all there when you deliver your appreciation. When you're talking about something you specifically remember, it's almost like you're reliving that moment, and the person can feel your sincerity more. And let's see, what's that? I'm trying to read these backwards.
I hear you, and I have a different.
I hear you, and I have a different perspective. Different need.
I already feel myself recoiling.
Well, at least the person is acknowledging that there's a difference. So it's like, I hear you, and I have a different perspective. And then the next sentence should be, may I tell you how I see it? And what you really need to do is, that's the one that tries to train our minds to both care about the other and care about self.
Yes.
I call it, in the book Getting Real, I call it holding differences. And there's a whole chapter on the importance of being able to hear another viewpoint that's different from your own and respect both.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mind stretching skill when you say, I hear you. And it validates the fact that differences do happen. And it gives you kind of a tool for focusing on the difference rather than the other person being the problem.
Okay.
You know, in negotiation, we always say, focus on not the person,
but on the problem.
The problem, not the person isn't the problem, but it's your difference that you need to work out together. And then finally, can we talk about, what's that thing? Let me read it there. Talk about how we're feeling. Like I give an example in the book, this couple who's having sex for the first time, and they find that it's not actually going very well. They're both kind of inhibited. And so somebody pauses and says, hey, even in the middle of sex, can we talk about how we're feeling? And they both pause and they realize that they were rushing getting into a full-on sexual relationship, that each of them had thought the other person wanted it. And so they were kind of doing the performance thing. And when they revealed that, they just relaxed and cuddled and felt much more intimate. And they stopped trying to do the intercourse thing. So it's like pausing in the middle of something if it's not going well and just course correcting. So those are the 7.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those and coming up with them, in the first place.
Well,
you inspired so many people, who have, like Decker Kunov and other people who have used their work and advanced your work. And I think I had never so many people write me up front and say, oh, great, you have Dr. Susan on the jam. because they value you so much and honor you so much for what you have pioneered. And directly and indirectly reached probably millions of people, through what you initiated. So,
well, there's this whole authentic relating movement.
And now I see that I appreciate you, and I haven't even thought. Anyway.
I'm like old. Okay, so I love it that the young people are carrying this work forward, and they're so much more tech savvy, and they got the energy to get on airplanes and travel and do groups all over the world. I'm running out of gas for international travel myself. So my books just keep sending ripples out, and that's a great thing for a person at my stage of life, because I'm going to turn 77 next month.
Whoa!
Whoa is right. Like, ooh,
you look amazing. Yeah.
I feel great. Life couldn't be better.
Yeah. I still remember when
thing a little bit.
Yeah. So number 2, I want, right? Let's.
Well, we'll go back to I want then. I want the best thing to think of when you're wanting something is to ask for it at a time when you could actually get it. Like, don't ask your husband to move the furniture around when he's watching a football game. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And make sure the want paints a picture. Like, if let's say what comes to your mind is, I want us to be more romantic.
Yes.
But rather than using some generic term like romantic, because that means different things to different people. Again, one of the getting real true skills is to be specific and put yourself into the scenario of what you're trying to create. So I want us to spend a nice evening tonight, kind of unstructured, just lying by the fire and maybe cuddling or holding hands. Would you like that? And so I want also has a, how's that work for you? Is that something you also want? But they're more likely to want it if you paint a picture of what you're really talking about and to kind of enroll them. Or if you're specific, they can also say, no, I'm not up for that. So, but if you say, I want you to be more romantic, and they say yes, they probably don't even know what they're saying yes to.
Yeah.
So, for
So
the wants, be specific.
Now we're hearing an echo. Can you hear your turn your speaker?
Should I turn it down a little? Because
Yeah,
I do not hear the echo, but let me turn my speaker down. Does that help a little?
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Do you make a differentiation in undefended love? They have this from need to want, to desire, to preference, to no preference. Is there, or let's say on need and want.
Like there's a lot of, there's attachment needs.
Yeah.
Which are the things that babies and children need in order to bond in a healthy way. So here's the way I do the wants and needs thing. People, all humans, when they're growing up, need loving attention. They need some kind of feedback from the environment. They need co-regulation, which means when you're hurt or sad or upset or scared, you can run to somebody and they'll put their arms around you. So that kind of thing. Those are the needs that children need in order to develop a trust relationship with the world. And in my book, 5-Minute Relationship Repair, which is mostly about couple intimacy, but a lot of it happens in dating and in family relationships too. But in that book, the big thing is how to co-regulate each other's nervous system and how to learn to self-regulate so that when those needs seem to be threatened, like the need to feel loved or the need to feel accepted, those early attachment wound type needs, when those rear their head in an adult relationship and feel like they're being unmet, and that's actually what causes triggering. So we'll get to the triggering phenomenon. I teach couples how to ask for co-regulation, and we would call that an attachment need. So ask for a hug. Ask or self-regulation would be like putting your hand on your heart if you're feeling hurt by something somebody said, pausing and giving yourself a little tender, loving care. So I use needs that way. But I don't make a big deal out of the particular distinctions that you talked about. Certainly, preference, it's good to know the difference between a preference and a have to. And the more have tos you have in the world, the more things you have to have in order to feel okay, the less happy and secure you're going to feel. But the more you're able to get co-regulation from your relationships and self-regulate when the answer is no and you can't get what you want from somebody else, you're able to self-regulate, you're just going to feel safe in the world. And you'll operate mostly from preferences and not from have-tos.
So I almost felt so like a little split where it can then dissolve into a need, right? You say, well, I want to be romantic and, be specific, and the person doesn't respond positively, our partner, then maybe, well, but I really need this now, right? So we slip down, or we can go, well, I can take a bath, right? And eat some strawberries, or, I guess that's what you're...
it's good to be able to take no for an answer and give something to yourself. And it's also good to be able to ask. So I don't care if you use the word want or need. It's really the intent and the energy behind the word is what I like to focus on. Words
you can also go back to step one then, right? And say, when you say, I don't have time right now for romance, and then share your feeling, right? And, because need, right, and can go into neediness. And so, I mean, that's a whole different path we would go down here, but this is just my self-talk right now about need and neediness and wants and desire.
Well, neediness, I don't make anything wrong in my system. It's in a way I would call it's a very feminine system. It's holistic. It's like we include all parts, including the shadow parts of the being. So if I feel needy, then that generally means I'm not safe. I'm needing either co-regulation or self-regulation. And probably I'm triggered. Probably I'm in a fear state. If I'm feeling needy, the important thing is to use whatever I'm feeling to inquire more deeply so I can know what's really going on. And if that's a needy part that fears I'm not acceptable and I'm being rejected, I need to get to know that part. Probably came from an early childhood wound. Sometimes if I stay with that feeling of neediness, and this is a self-inquiry process. So after somebody says, no, I'm not going to cuddle you tonight, I'm too busy, I get my button pushed, my fear of rejection button, and my neediness is screaming out. And I realized, oh, this is deep pain, and I hold space. The feminine principle is like holding space for everything that is. It's like the first truth skill is called experiencing what is, and Byron Katie calls it loving what is, and Fritz Perls just used to say what is, and Werner Erhard took that and made that very popular. So, you know, we're all on this journey for as long as I can remember, since the 50s, really. Some of us weren't born in the 50s, but I was an adult then. And we're just trying to embrace more and more of reality. So the painful reality that's inside of me, that's my own childhood wound of not having had enough love and having people say no to me too often when I had genuine needs to be held. Because when you're really little, they are needs. They are not just wants. And so if I can go back and let in some of the pain that I had to shut down when I was little, because it wasn't safe to scream and cry, because I was already being rejected for screaming and crying. So I shut down. If I find the memory of that, or I find the intuition of that, what I do is hold space, hold a loving, compassionate inner space for the hurting child. And that kind of dual awareness is very healing. And the only way I can get to that is usually in some kind of a relationship where I get my buttons pushed, whether it's dating or marriage or whatever it is. You know, that's the deepest trigger for self-growth and learning about my shadow parts. So that's relationship. That's the whole couple's journey model, relationship as a spiritual practice.
So what's the third one, the trigger?
Well, let's see. Well, the third one was I have some feelings to clear. And we talked about that a little bit, about just revising and saying if I had it to do over, I would have said, I am hurting rather than you're stupid. That kind of thing. You know, cross off the you're stupid. That was my triggered defensive reaction coming up to cover up my tender little part. So
I have a question there, like when you have this,
I'm getting triggered. So
on the third one, when you feel I have some feelings to clear, do you usually check if your partner is ready for that? Because
that's right. Yeah, I mentioned that before. You don't just that's a frame, and then you have to say, is this a good time?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
It's worth repeating. You don't just drive by and shoot at them.
Because I had that where I was totally busy and the woman said, I need to share my feelings right now and have your full attention, and I just can't do it when I
so then you need to say well, hearing you say that, you need to go to, I hear you and I have a different perspective, but if I hear you and I have a different need, I hear you want to do that, and I want to be available for that. And right now I'm getting ready to do a podcast and I have no intention to give you for that. You need that other tool for this one.
Okay.
If you had these 7 tools, you can handle almost any situation in life.
So you want to share a little bit more about the trigger, because that has been with Mark Foreman and other people, the wound and the monster's journey and things. So we have some other really interesting web jams online when people want to dig deeper. What's your take on dealing with triggers? And because I often feel, I'm a fairly present person, but still sometimes I get taken over. I'm not even aware that I'm triggered, right? And
absolutely,
I said a few times on this web jam, I feel like, oh, I'm getting defensive, right? I'm
good to be able to notice it. That's the
catch myself.
Yeah, that's the practice. Is so first of all, triggers are an automatic nervous system reaction because the brain has a emotional center called the amygdala, and it's always scanning for whether you're safe or not. And in primitive times, and this is where that part of the brain came from, it developed in primitive times to keep you from getting eaten by a tiger in the forest. Okay, so all of us humans still have that survival alarm system built in, and it's very quick to react if it senses anything that's dangerous. And nowadays, what we humans interpret as danger is not a tiger looking out from the trees. It's more your partner's tone of voice, or your partner, or maybe a person you're dating, and they're not listening. They're looking at the floor, or they're looking around while you're talking. That can all of a sudden feel like a 4-alarm fire just went off in your head. And what happens then is you might shut down and you go to either freeze, which is kind of a shutdown of deer in the headlights. I don't know what to say. You just kind of numb, like dissociated, or you can go to anger or fight, like starting to judge the person or criticize them, or go, I'm out of here. Or you can go to flight. You just want to disappear and leave the room. Or get them to stop talking. So those of you who are listening, you kind of can recognize, do you when you're triggered, what happens in your nervous system? Does it get more aggressive? Does it shut down, or does it want to flee the situation? And then what we learn from there is all humans have this. So try not to be ashamed of the fact that you do get triggered. And that really is the first lesson, because so many people blame somebody else for their triggers because they're so ashamed of the fact that they themselves have these triggers.
Oh, that deeply resonates with me.
That their nervous system is kind of sensitive. And let's just hug all of us who feel that way, who are a little ashamed, because we're all in this together. I think at this stage in human evolution, Martin, this is probably the biggest block to evolving beyond egocentric behaving and thinking. That self-protective, fear-based survival alarm mechanism that doesn't feel safe when there's any kind of break in connection to somebody else, like if you think somebody's judging you or something like that. So accepting that this is part of the human condition, that's one. Knowing what your early warning signs of what happens in your body and in your mind, we get triggered. So, I'll usually ask people. So you mentioned, you notice yourself getting defensive. What other things do you notice when you get triggered? Anything else? Any early warning signs that tell you that you're triggered?
For me? Well, I'm first of all, I feel a certain sadness right now, and I wanted to, because of all the times, when I got triggered and felt shame. And, so many women say, oh, I've been with angry men. And then I always say, I'm not angry. I mean, I really definitely hardly ever get angry, but I become more and more aware of my passive aggressiveness. I'm the one who then withdraws. And I think that comes from my shame of being triggered. But then it's not going outward as people are afraid of, but it goes this. Like I was just in Turkey, and there was a situation where we wanted to go out, and then another person wanted to join. I didn't really want her to join. And I saw myself going to my room and just telling them, I need healthy boundaries and I need to take care of me. And I'm not going with you. And then I realized it was my passive aggressive side,
Yeah.
right? And instead of talking to them how I feel. And then I went, and it was like the most amazing evening. And I could almost shoot myself if I wouldn't have gone, right? But I think a lot of people think they're so enlightened, and like I maybe think I'm so enlightened, and then I have this passive aggressive shadow. So I just wanted to share that.
So that would be if you find yourself like your reaction is your deep reaction is kind of you're hurt by something or you're scared by something.
Exactly.
Those are the deeper core feelings. But on the surface, you might judge the other person. You might say, they're not the kind of person that I want to spend time with, or they're too insensitive, or So if you find yourself judging the other person, or doing a maneuver that, let's say we call it passive aggressive, doing a maneuver that takes some kind of action, like I'm not going to go with you. I'm not going to go to this event with you.
Yeah.
Some kind of action that's designed to kind of protect yourself or get back at the other person.
Exactly. Yes.
If you notice any of those things, those might be signs that you're triggered and that there's a deeper fear that's motivating all this. And so then what I counsel people, once you know what the signs are that you're triggered, and for a lot of us, one of the signs is you start judging the other person. You're not like out and out raging. That's you don't have to be raging, or expressing a lot to be triggered. Like you said, sometimes you shut down, you withdraw, or sometimes you go into your head and you judge people. Yeah. So I want people to be aware of all those.
In a subtle way, I punish them, right, by withdrawing, and I know that makes them feel bad, but and then the connection breaks down, of course. And
then you can come back later and do what was this? Number 3. I have some feelings to clear, and what that means is you go back and redo. That's like a redo. When I shut down and withdrew and said no. If I had it, and I want to confess, I was triggered. If I had it to go over, I would have told you I was hurt. And blah blah blah.
That's actually what I intuitively did. I then went down, was in a hotel, and I talked to the people and said what was going on for me, and then that kind of cleared the air, and we had a great evening. So
beautiful.
I intuitively did it right. So
wonderful. That's what if everyone could do that, there could be peace on earth, because we wouldn't be carrying so much anger around and so much fear of each other. But of course, in order to do this thing that I call honest relating, in order to do it, you need to do it skillfully. And so that's what we're talking about here, is the skills to do honesty in a safe, respectful way.
Okay.
So, you learn, going back to triggers now. So you accept that everyone gets triggered. You learn the early warning signs that you are triggered. Then you learn to pause and self-regulate when you do get triggered. Don't keep talking. Don't keep building your case or being aggressive against the other person or whatever is going to just make the situation more volatile, because you're both in your reptilian brain. You're not in this frontal part of your brain that can cooperate and collaborate and care. So we have to get we're back in this part of our brain. We have to get our higher brain back online before we can do anything constructive, before we could do any one of these things. So we just admit, hey, I'm a basket case. I need to pause. And you actually need, like in a couple relationship, I asked them to develop a practice where they agree. If either person feels triggered or thinks maybe the other person is triggered, find a signal like the word pause or whoa or timeout. Find a signal that means both people will stop talking, because it's not good to keep throwing fuel to the fire.
It's kind of the holding till relaxed strategy, for example, or something like that.
I don't know what you just said.
Oh, David Schnark has the suggestion of holding till relaxed. So instead of talking, just holding each other, if the couple can do that.
That's when you're co-regulating each other.
Yes,
and
you mentioned
after
that.
you're triggered, that's a good technique. If the partner is willing to be touched,
yes, of course.
You have to learn whether that works for your particular partner. So let's say you're on a date though, and you don't know, but you see that the woman, in your case, the woman gets triggered, and she's starting to withdraw from you. You might say, "Oh, honey, I see you withdrawing, and I'm thinking maybe I said something that hurt you. Would you like a hug?" You can say it. It's not like she might say no, but you've opened your heart and made it safe again when you see the person might be feeling unsafe. So that's the whole territory of what you do after you pause. So you pause, you calm yourself down, and that's really, I'm calling that self-regulation. The hugging and the holding the other person is more co-regulation. But both of those words, they're technical psychology words that mean you're helping to calm your own nervous system and get yourself feeling safe again.
Yes.
And you have to feel safe before your higher brain can function and you can collaborate. Yes. So all these politicians who try to inflame one another while they're negotiating for world peace, I think they need our help, Martin. Because if the other person doesn't feel safe, they're going to be trying to make you feel unsafe, and you're just, making more and more fear in the world. And so the same with relationships. So that's why relationships are so important, because all the same principles of healing and inner peace leading to outer peace, all of those same principles go for international relationships too.
I totally agree, of course. So we get to number 5.
Pause, calm, hold some space for yourself. Like I was saying before, nurture that inner child if you can get in touch with that, or else just kind of hug yourself in general. And then finally, after a trigger, I invite people to do some kind of repair after they've really calmed down. Like you did, you went back and talked to these people and cleared the air. That's what repair really means. And
so
I go into that a little more, but just wanted to get the bare elements of what a trigger, what trigger therapy, trigger self-therapy. You can do it yourself, but sometimes you might need a coach to guide you the first few times.
Okay, I feel I want to rush you, and it's not a really feeling, but rush you a little bit to 5, 6, and 7, because I also have 2, 3 more questions. So what's number 5 on your card?
Well, I appreciate
and I would like to talk for 2 more hours.
That, I think.
I
really think I dealt with that. I talked about being specific and that sort of thing. I guess I'll just say one thing about general harmony in a relationship. If you're appreciating each other a lot, it's going to help everyone feel safer and more loved, and they're going to be in their forebrain, and more often they're going to be walking around coming from this safe place rather than from this danger place back here, the brainstem.
Yes.
And the next one is, I hear you and I have a different perspective. That is a sentence stem that you use when somebody disagrees with you or wants something. It's not always perspective. It's I hear that you want me to fix the fence today, and I had other things on my agenda today. So you're just acknowledging both people's needs are valid, and now we need to consider, okay, how do we deal with the fact that there's a difference here?
Yeah. So that is, of course, a big deal. So like for integral people, because, this where we have stages of consciousness or worldview, and some people don't like that we stack them vertically. We can also look like ripples on a lake, right? And so sometimes people just cannot see our perspective even. And so there is disagreement just because of lack. We're over their head, or we're further out in the ripples.
Yeah.
So what's your experience around that, and how to deal with that?
Well, certainly if I'm at a lower stage and somebody speaks in a way that is coming from a higher stage, I won't be able to hear them.
Yeah.
I won't. I can pretend, but I won't. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you're in a higher stage, you really ought to be able to empathize with any perspective. But you have to have evolved enough in yourself so that you're not afraid of those other parts, those other stages. Because sometimes when you've like just gotten out of the green meme, into what's the next, a turquoise?
The teal,
Teal, yeah. Once you've gotten to that, you're still so close to the green, and you're so easily seduced back into it that you're threatened by those people, and so you criticize them. So you're not fully integrated enough. Guilty, yeah. You're not integrated enough to be really spacious, to hold space for all of those other levels. And I think one of the best practices for getting you to be the most spacious is to do the trigger work that I was mentioning, because all the levels of consciousness are down there in your shadow somewhere. The resentful, wanting revenge, all of that stuff is somewhere down there.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you have to give it any energy, but you have to give it love and attention and empathy, and allow that shadow part of yourself to be integrated into the whole of you.
Yes.
And that's what I call it trigger mastery work, really. That's what mastering your triggers.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you're never going to have them, but it means you know how to work with them and just know. It's basically a trigger reaction is a pain in the ego.
Yeah.
And you just have to accept that there's parts of you, and if you can integrate them, then I think you can talk to the lower levels.
Yes.
With an open mind.
Yeah.
I think there might be more to your question about levels, but I want.
No, this made me feel very accepted, because often we get then rejected. So like we integral people, when we start to talk about levels, and I didn't even know that you're so familiar with it. So that's wonderful.
I've always been a developmental person. My first book talked about kind of like what Wilbur did.
Yeah.
Looked at all the different developmental theories, Kohlberg and Piaget, and back those days there weren't a lot of developmental theories when I was doing this work. And
wonderful.
Wilbur started it, but I'm very, very sympathetic to development.
In my trainings and workshops now, I have hats with different colors that represent the stages, and we practice to speak from each of these levels at the same or at different levels. And it's just amazing what comes up for people, where they feel the energies, right? Where they may have deficiencies, right? In having good boundaries, or being rational, or being reasonable.
Yeah.
But also,
in a way, these sentence stems are kind of training you to be at a higher stage.
Yeah. So
they're giving you a frame, and they're saying, hey, try it. Maybe it'll work, and maybe it'll lift you to a stage that is more integral.
Yeah. Okay, so we come to number 6, just as a revisit. I know you already spoke to all of them.
So I hear you, and I have a different perspective.
Oh yeah, okay, we already covered that. Okay,
and the last 7. One is, can we talk about how we're feeling? And I gave that instance of the couple having sex for the first time and stopping in the middle because somebody said, hey, could we push pause here? So anytime, let's say you're bored with what somebody's saying, that's a common situation. And you might say, hey, could we push pause here? I'm thinking, you don't always have to say feeling.
Yeah.
If it's self-revealing,
Mm.
rather than believing your thoughts like some assertion about the other person. But if it's a self-revealing thought, it's called self-talk. I introduce that term, and it's safe. So, I'm thinking, how did we get talking about Trump again?
Yeah.
It seemed to me that at first we were talking about the compassion for all beings, and somehow then we got onto Trump. So I wanted to come back to the first topic. Is that okay with you? You just sort of, it's like a timeout to course correct to see if we both want to be doing what we're doing.
So I think 2 weeks ago, I talked with Bert Parley, and he said something that immediately made me think of you and how I experienced you over the years. And we talked about polarities, and one of them he said was being direct versus being diplomatic, right? And I mean, I've seen you, and some people have sort of like, this radical honesty, that some people think you teach or you teach, and being authentic sometimes can be seen as undiplomatic, maybe, or.
Well, first of all, a lot of it goes back to the intent behind your communication. First of all, direct seems to be polarized to me with indirect, direct or indirect, not diplomatic. Direct can be diplomatic. To me, diplomatic means caring about the impact that you're having on somebody. Is that what you mean by diplomatic?
I guess that's, because that also leads a little bit
here. But to me, that's what diplomatic means. It means that that I don't want to offend you, kind of thing.
Yes.
As I speak. And if my intent in not wanting to offend you is to avoid dealing with a difference that's really here, like I don't, let's say I'm dating and I know that I don't want to have kids and my partner wants to have kids. I mean, my dating partner, we're not married or anything. I might be like diplomatic, and maybe diplomatic's the wrong word here, but kind of try to blur our differences there and say, well, maybe, or that kind of thing. But if I'm being dishonest, if it's hiding the truth, then that's not going to serve anybody. I think you need some of these other truths. So really, it's kind of a funny distinction. Really, I don't
resonate much with
that distinction. But direct versus indirect, sometimes I could choose, let's say, to make a direct request. I can make a direct request like, I'd like to go to the French restaurant. That's direct. Or I could be indirect and say, I've been thinking about French food and I really like French food and I'd like to go out tonight. Where would you like to go? Would you like to go to that French restaurant? It's a little beaten around the bush. And, both of them are okay. But looking at your motives for being indirect is to me, is if you're coming from fear of hearing no, and so you kind of say a lot of extra words or throw in a lot of disclaimers just in case the other person doesn't want to do it or something like that. So for me, it's how you speak isn't, words like direct, indirect aren't the essence of communication. It's is it covering up something? And certainly all communication, I think all good communication is two-way. It cares about the impact on the other. So
I mean, there's this movie, The Invention of Lying.
You can, but I'm still not too sure about that word, diplomatic.
Okay. So there's this movie, The Invention of Lying. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I think I did, yeah.
Where people are just radically honest with each other, or nobody is able to lie. And it shows kind of like in a funny way how, I mean, it makes you feel uneasy, right? How that would be if everybody would just blurt out on one level what they really think about others. Of course, there are scenes where he says, I have $10,000 on my bank account, and the teller says, no, it's zero, but of course you cannot lie. So I trust that we made a mistake, right? So when he invents lying, he has an advantage over everybody else. So, but we're a little bit out of time. So,
well, let me just say one last thing,
yeah.
Mark. You can only be honest about yourself. So what people call honest, when you're blurting out hurtful things,
Yeah.
you're usually blurting out your judgments or your assessments. That's not what I mean by honesty. Honesty,
Okay.
revealing something about yourself. It's making yourself more vulnerable and more seen. That's what honesty really is.
Okay. That's the
very
important
me. I mean, I do this practice called getting real. So you can only be honest about yourself. You can only be as honest as you are self-aware, and that means aware of your own true motives.
Right.
If your motive is to hide the truth, then that's going to backfire sooner or later.
And then being real or being honest is then not used potentially as a weapon and to control people, right? Because that Campbell says that too. We, in the name of being honest and real, people can justify that potentially to really hurt other people and control them, or
I make a big distinction. I mean, it's the biggest deal of all is the distinction between communicating to relate, which is two-way, to know and be known.
Yes.
Communicating to relate versus communicating to control, which is to manipulate, to ask for things without really asking for them, get people to do what you want without taking the risk of hearing no. That's a bigger conversation. Relating, control, very important.
Yeah. But I'm glad we took the time to address that, because that, since I know you, is sort of like an ongoing, whenever I think of you, is to see this distinction, right? Which I think, at least when you came to singles to couples many years ago, that people felt a little bit confused around making this distinction very clearly.
It takes a while to understand all the disguises that controlling comes in. That's in the book Getting Real, and also in 5-Minute Relationship Repair. It's a very exciting inquiry into self, to look at all the ways you control and you don't even know it.
And we both emphasize that this is best obviously practiced in a intimate relationship where we get triggered and where we're fully vulnerable, right, at all levels.
Yeah,
because it's easier to fake it if we're single when we're in an intimate relationship.
You can do this. We'll see. You can do this even in a dating relationship by agreement.
Yeah.
The book Truth in Dating outlines how you can get this kind of an agreement early on in a dating relationship, so that you can practice all this stuff and grow together, even if you don't wind up together.
Yeah, wonderful. So we already mentioned your books, and what your website is?
SusanCampbell.com.
Very simple, SusanCampbell.com.
And I'm teaching a workshop August 4th and 5th here at my house in Sebastopol, California.
All right. And then you do also still coaching and work with people online, worldwide, basically?
Worldwide.
With couples and singles? So people can reach you through your website.
Yeah.
And then I also want to mention again these 2 card games that are still available, right? Because those I rescued, I had here in LA. I found them really exciting. Even like in my family, we used them at Christmas, and I used them on dates and in workshops. These questions, it's a wonderful game with different levels of depths of questions.
That's right.
And so check out that game. That's really wonderful.
Yeah, I've taken the game cards to a first date even, and it really keeps things lively.
Yeah. A few years ago, I dated over the phone. We had seen each other at Harbin, but so we we just played it like for a few hours over the phone over the course of a few days, and we became very clear that we're not a match. So
Yep.
and we were both grateful, we were so happy. Well, we didn't waste any time, and there was a lot of connection and love, but we also were clear that we're just too different. So
That's what happened. This game is
Yeah.
excellent. I'm reading off of Susan Page's endorsement here. This
Yeah.
game is excellent for getting to know things that would ordinarily take years to find out.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
the good news and the bad news.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for your friendship and for your support over the years. And this was a thrilling conversation, and many people will watch that later on YouTube, and it will be on my YouTube channel.
Thanks,
So,
Martin, for having me on your show.
absolutely. Thank you, Susan. Talk soon.
Okay.
Have a
Bye.
great weekend. Bye-bye, everyone.